Adam here from the Walser Automotive Group, and what I want to do today is take you on a test drive. So next to me here, I have the 2026 Hyundai Santa Cruz. We'll look at the interior, exterior, some of the trim level specifics, then go for a spin around, see what it's like out on the road. Okay, so now we're behind the wheel of the 26 Hyundai Santa Cruz, and this is the SEL trim. So there's about 5 different trim levels, the SE being the base, this kind of stepping up from there, but there's a lot of great equipment. You get a lot of pretty cool stuff in this trim. Now we'll touch on some of the engine options and a few of the other trim levels we're on the road, but I think the SEL is a pretty great point, especially when you add in the all-wheel drive for tackling those Minnesota winters. But for now, let's put it in drive, we'll go for a spin around and touch on some of those other features. Now let's begin with what powers these Hyundai Santa Cruz models. Now there's 2 different engine options. Depending on which trim level will depend on which engine you're going to get. This particular one is a 2.5 liter 4-cylinder. Now what's great about this, even with the H-Track, which is the all-wheel drive system, we're still getting 29 miles per gallon on the highway. Now there is also going to be a turbocharged engine. So you go from about 181 horsepower to 281 horsepower. So it is a pretty big jump up there, but you do sacrifice fuel economy. Now front wheel drive is going to be standard on the Santa Cruz models, unless you're looking at the XRT, which is kind of the off-road focused one. So that would be standard with the all-wheel drive. It's about a $1,500 option. But like I said, up here tackling these Minnesota winters, I think it might be a pretty worthy upgrade. So a few other things on the exterior, let's begin with the colors. So the Santa Cruz does come in some pretty cool colors, and one main change for 26, they dropped the green interior option. So that's a little bit of a bummer because it was pretty cool, but some of the exterior colors are going to remain pretty much the same, this being the sage gray, which is actually kind of more green in my eyes, but it works really well with this truck. Now I think it kind of fits the style and the design language of the Santa Cruz, and it kind of fits the vibe of the truck, if that makes sense. The cool colors all kind of work nicely together. It just sort of flows with it. This one gets the 18-inch wheels. It's kind of a silver and black mix, and it does look pretty cool, and again, kind of flows all together. Now, 25 was the big change for the Santa Cruz. This is where it looks more kind of like the Tucson in the lineup, kind of adjusting to Hyundai's design language, and there was a lot of changes inside as well. But with the vehicle being a truck, let's kind of cover some of that stuff first. So there is a tonneau cover you can get on these that's going to make it weather tight. This particular one doesn't come with that, but it's going to have kind of like that bed liner already built into these trucks. So what's really nice is kind of like the Honda Ridgeline. If you're maybe comparing the Ford Maverick or the Ridgeline or the Santa Cruz, you'll know that there's some pretty cool storage options in these vehicles. So this one has a floor, it's kind of a weather tight seal, and you can put stuff out of sight under the truck bed. It's really nice because you can kind of keep it out of sight if you got like tow straps or anything else you want to put under there, or you can even use it as kind of like a tiny cooler, which is kind of unique. As we kind of jump out onto the road here, let's put our foot down. You know, it's not too bad. I think if I was looking at one, I might prefer the turbo option. It just makes it a little bit more fun when you're on the road for day-to-day use, gives you that little bit of extra power, but again, you do sacrifice a little bit of fuel economy. But I mean, how often are you really flooring the vehicle? It probably makes more sense to get the different fuel economy benefit versus the kind of turbocharged benefit, but if you're looking for a little bit more fun, I think that would be the route to go. Now this is an 8-speed automatic where that goes to a dual clutch automatic, so there's just a few options there. No CVT in these, so you don't have to come into the comments. I know a lot of people aren't a huge fan, so I do like that Hyundai did keep the 8-speed. Now the ride and drive is really nice and quiet. A lot of these Hyundais, if you haven't driven one in a while, or maybe you're driving an older one, they're so nice and comfortable on the road. The handling of this vehicle is great. Kind of, when you get into the Ridgeline, you feel like you're in a Honda Pilot and kind of feel like you're just pushing around a big SUV. This, and like I said, competing with the Ford Maverick, you're definitely getting more luxury and kind of comfort out of this vehicle, if that sort of makes sense. There's more of a just kind of feel to this vehicle that it's a little bit more kind of bolted together nicely, if that makes sense. The equipment, the style, the technology, everything in here works very well. Now, hopping into the inside, if you're looking at the second row, like most kind of mid-sized trucks or smaller crossovers, there's not a ton of room back there. If you want a little bit more space, you probably have to jump up to one of the bigger SUVs, but there is USB-C charging back there, and if you got little kids, I think they'd be fine. 4 adults might get a little bit tighter back there, but I think overall it would work for a short trip, or if you're just kind of buzzing around town, like I said, with the kids, putting stuff in the back, it would work just fine. Now in the driver's seat, this is where you want to be. So there is quite a bit of comfort and cool technology, even being this is one of the lower tier trim levels. Now you can hear my blind spot monitoring is working. So there's a truck behind me here. Yes, you can see very clearly, and it's actually pretty easy to see out of this little truck, but the blind spot monitoring would let you know if you kick on your blinker and someone is kind of hiding there. It's a little red light in the side mirror here that would indicate that, but there is quite a bit of safety in these vehicles as well. One thing that's pretty cool is the smart cruise. So you can set a certain distance on the road for the vehicle in front of you. It will keep that distance if you're doing road trips, even just buzzing around town. It's a pretty cool safety feature. There's also kind of the emergency notification. So if you're about to back out of a parking spot, it gives you a little display in your center cluster here that would let you know you might not see someone coming up quickly, and it can actually stop the vehicle. Now, I've got my phone in here, as we've always got our phones with us, wireless Apple CarPlay as well as wireless Android Auto, which is really nice. The infotainment screen is actually super fast. It's very responsive as you swipe through. Text messaging, Google Maps, Spotify, it's all going to be built into there. Makes it so easy to not be messing with your phone when you're on the go. Then there is just a little convenient storage down here. You can do wireless charging in some of the models as you work your way up, but you know, for the most part, I think just plugging it in, there's USB-C charging down here. That seems to usually work better anyways. Now let's talk about the clusters here. So there's two 12.3-inch displays. If you move up the trim levels, that changes this kind of the digital gauge cluster side. This one's going to have more kind of analog gauges in here, and then just your center display, which you can adjust to kind of keep track of your pertinent information. Your trip computer, you can actually see the H-track or the all-wheel drive system working in there, and then just a few other little things. But then on the other side, like I said, that 12.3-inch display, that's going to give you your kind of CarPlay or just the Hyundai menu if you want to adjust some of your safety stuff in there. You can pull up your navigation with actual physical buttons down here, or kind of flip back and forth. So I like that they kept some of the physical buttons. Along with that, we've also got a dual zone climate control, even in the SEL trim. So you can set that driver, passenger, that's really nice. And then these H-Tech seats, these are actually heated for the driver and the passenger. So these seats are really comfortable. It's gonna be power on my side with a lumbar control. It's also gonna be heated to 3 different levels. So once that Minnesota winter does come around, we're not always looking forward to it, but this also has a remote start on the key fob. So you can fire it up, get the heated seats going. It'll be nice and toasty when you hop in. But I mean, overall, there's some pretty cool little things in here, like the drive mode select. You can kind of fine tune or dial in your driving style. So I can go to a sport mode, smart, kind of program my own, and then a snow mode. And then also you can lock the all-wheel drive. So if you're trying to get out of kind of a tricky situation, you can lock that in and it'll help you out there. And then you can also pull up the backup camera. So if you're kind of stopped trying to see what's going on around you, you can pull up that backup camera, and then there's 3 different views in there. So you can do the hitch view, straight behind, and then kind of the full 12.3-inch display, which does make it really nice. Now, there is an important note if you are planning on towing with the Santa Cruz. So the base 4-cylinder can tow 3,500 pounds, and then if you bump up to the turbo, that's going to unlock 5,000 pounds of towing capacity. So there is a pretty big difference there. If you're looking at the Ridgeline or the Maverick, those also are going to tow 5,000 pounds. So you're going to want to hop up to the turbo. If you've got a little bit of maybe a utility trailer or a smaller boat you're towing around, that would probably be the one to look at. Now we do have to touch on the pricing. So for 2026, MSRP is going to start around the $31,000 price range. This particular one with the all-wheel drive, the sage gray paint in here, we're looking at about $34,000 for the MSRP. So there might be a few discounts on these trucks depending on time of filming versus time of actual discounts. But I think if you're cross-shopping for, like I said, the Ridgeline or the Maverick are kind of the big two, but if you're also looking for smaller SUVs, you're someone who's kind of maybe the Home Depot hero on the weekend, and you don't need as much room in the back seats, and you want the little truck bed, it does come in pretty handy. It's actually really nice, especially the ones with that rolling tonneau cover back there to keep everything out of sight. Again, that's a weatherproof little cover, and it just sort of works as a day-to-day vehicle. 29 mpg on the highway is pretty good out of something that's pretty similar to a mid-size SUV. And inside, there is a lot more comfort and luxury, like I said, when comparing with some other models. The other ones might feel a little bit more basic. They might not feel kind of as nice for the touch points on the vehicle, but the screen works nicely in here. It kind of has a driver-centric feel to it. I like that it makes it easy to hit all the buttons. The remote start built in is really cool. I think if you're in the market and you're cross-shopping, even if you're looking at Tacoma or GMC and you're not planning on doing a lot of towing, or you want the better fuel economy and maybe you don't need all the off-road capability those trucks offer, I think the Santa Cruz is a pretty sweet little option. I think it's an amazing looking truck. I remember being 2015 at the LA Auto Show when these came out, and they were gonna do like an extendable bed. They had all this cool stuff planned out for this truck, and the design language really didn't change that much from what it was. They kept a cool kind of style and vibe and feel of this truck, and it still kind of feels that way today. I think the design is aged very nicely, and it is a pretty fun little vehicle to drive, especially if you go with the turbocharged engine. So I think it's absolutely one to add to the list. Come out, take for a spin, and see what you think. Now that was just a quick look and drive at the 26 Hyundai Santa Cruz. Now if you have any other questions or you'd like to schedule a test drive, you can visit us online at walser.com or stop by anytime. We'd be more than happy to help. Thanks again for watching.